On this episode of Lessons with Dylan, we'll be talking about graphing lines, so sit down and pay attention, please. Now, learning about lines, or graphing in lines in general, is really easy. You'll get this pretty much the first couple days, but we all make mistakes, and sometimes we happen to make a lot more than we really should be. So, here is how you're not going to make those mistakes. So, pay attention. Now, the first step to graphing lines is knowing the equation. This equation is y equals mx plus b. Now, I know y'all just learned this literally not so long ago, so this should be fresh in your mind. I'm going to be talking about how to read this equation, what it's used for, and honestly, just what everything does. So pay attention, please. As you can see on the picture, the equation y equals mx plus b is labeled. One is the slope and one is the y-intercept. And y is just basically how you know that this is the simplified equation and what you're going to be putting on your graph. Now on the left it said simplified equation. This basically means this is the most simplified part. This is exactly what you want to see. You just want to see y by itself and you want to see y equals. Now this will always tell you that this is what you're going to graph. Okay, this is one of the most important things to know. As soon as you have y equals and then something after that, girl, you're good. Start graphing this. Now on this side, you see that mx equals slope. But really, m is the only one that equals slope. X is just how you automatically know this is slope. Okay? So m will be any number or any fraction such as 2 or 1/2 or etc. Okay? Now, this is going to be rise over run. This is going to be very beneficial on how you graph this, whether it's going to be a positive graph or a negative graph. And I will get to that later, so don't worry too much about it yet. Now you have the b equals y-intercept. The y-intercept goes on the y-axis, hence the letter y and y-intercept. Okay? This is the first step of graphing. You're going to want to place this first, and from there on, you'll put the slope on, and you connect the lines to form the graph. So, honestly, basic, simple, very easy. Let's move on to actually graphing. Now, looking at this picture, you have the complete equation on the top and the actual graph line on the graph. If you look at the picture and you see the equation, at the end on the very right, you see -4. Now, -4 or -4 is the y-intercept. So if you look at the graph, I went down 4 boxes on the y-axis, and that's where I started. Now, the slope is next, and that would be -1/5. And it's always rise over run, but since it's negative, you would go down 1 first. So as you can see, I went down 1 and ran 5. Therefore, it went over there. And basically, you could have just wrote or drew the line from there, but I decided to go back and do the opposite of the slope, which was rise 1 and run back 5. And essentially, that's the whole equation. Very simple, very easy. Now let's talk about what can go wrong. Many things can go wrong when graphing equations, especially if you do not look at the equation carefully. As you saw, the slope was negative. It was -1/5. But some people tend to overlook the negative, and this causes them to assume that it's positive, which would mean they would rise first and run over 5. Boom, there's your first mistake. You made the graphing line positive instead of negative, like it was meant to be. And that's one of the things that can go wrong. Another thing that can go wrong when graphing is the fact that you may or may not graph it on the right line. I know that seems stupid, but some people actually do mess this up. They either put the y-intercept wrong, or they read the slope wrong, and everything just goes wrong. But that's just the basic one. That's no big deal. What the big deal is there are other equations other than y equals mx plus b. And this is where it may get a bit complicated. So please pay attention very carefully. Now, there isn't just only that simple equation of y equals mx plus b. There's also some more smaller equations, such as y equals 2, or x equals negative 4. But where's the mx? Where is this slope? Well, there is none. And that's where things start to go crazy. Now, as you can probably see right here, I have y equals 2. This is a full equation. You can't not simplify this. There's no slope, but you have to graph it. And how exactly are you going to do that? Well, let's just look at it like this. You have the y-intercept, just not the slope. Then just put the y-intercept. The slope can be anything. So the graph line will essentially just stay horizontal. It won't go up and it won't go down. It'll just stay flat. Side to side, horizontal. That's all it's gonna stay as. What I mean by that is it'll look like this. Yes, just like this. Nothing else. And on this one, you see it says x equals negative 4. So, how would you do this one? Well, this one is a bit more complicated. You can't just simply graph it. Mostly because you can't. Now, I know I said you couldn't graph it necessarily. You can. As you look at it, you see it goes straight up and down, unlike y equals 2, where it went side to side. However, the answers in which you give are very different. On y equals 4, you would have, well, y equals 4, or like the slope is 0. But for x equals negative 2, there's no y, and there's no slope. So you can't say the slope is 0 because you don't have the equation to start with. So the answer is undefined. No one knows the answer because it's impossible to find. Don't ask me why, don't ask me how. That's just how it is. Now basically recapping, y equals mx plus b is the whole equation. This is how you're going to graph. B, or y-intercept, is going to go first on the y-axis. M, or slope, mx to be in general, is going to come after that. That's where you're going to start from the y-intercept. And y equals is just the whole equation in general. Now, when graphing, you obviously have complications, whether that be you read the equation wrong, you made the line positive when it was naturally negative. Everyone makes mistakes, it's fine. But you come to y equals 2 or x equals negative 4. Anything that has x equals, it's going to be straight up and down, but the answer is undefined. There is no slope because there is no equation to begin with. Y equals 2, however, is going to be horizontal, straight side to side. Simple as that. The slope, 0. There is no slope, okay? Boom. That's the recap. That's how you graph a line. Y'all got the easiest explanation. This concludes another episode of Lessons with Dylan. I hope you guys enjoy your freshman year again. Yeah. Bye.